Farming is not just a job. Farming is a way of life. A desolate land is a land thirsty of farmers. And because we know how important farmers are to every nation, that's why we reintroduce to you the Voice of the Farmers. Voice of the Farmers is a media brand that celebrates, educates, and promotes farmers with constant trainings and guide on how best to be a successful farmer. We also link farmers to the right markets to sell their produce and to the right marketers. Voice of the Farmers is active on Facebook, Instagram, and Thread at Voice of the Farmers. We are also on YouTube at Voice of the Farmers TV. For more inquiry on how to link up with Voice of the Farmers, please call 0907 872 8228 or 0706 662 8752. Voice of the Farmers. We celebrate, educate, and promote farmers.
Good afternoon, everyone watching us out there. My name is Garuba Fizolumide. I am your host, and I always be your host when it comes to anything agriculture on Voice of the Farmer. And today we are doing something very important, something very specific, something we want our farmers to learn from. Some times ago, let me say like a week ago, we created a WhatsApp community from Facebook because we have a lot of followership on Facebook, which they are asking for. Yes, Voice of the Farmer wanted to come up with something, wanted to come up with a training on some specific areas in agriculture, and that is why we come up with this first episode of basic information about vegetable farming. Now, I know some of our followers on the Facebook community are farmers. Yes, existing farmers already. Some of them are into livestock farming, some are into crop. But now today we are going to be looking at potentials, business opportunities that we have in vegetable farming. What are the things you can gain? What are the things you can do? What are the things you can explore when it comes to vegetable farming? And that is why we are coming up with an expert. Now, me talking about it now, yes, I know about it, but it's always good for you to bring experts from different sectors of agriculture to come and talk about a particular thing so that our guests, our viewers are going to learn from what I'm going to be talking about today. And today, we have in the studio with us Mr. Emeka Christian, who is an agricultural extension officer, and he also knows much about when it comes to vegetable farming. He's going to be talking to us about some basic things that we need to know when it comes to vegetable farming. Now, why are we doing this? I believe you should not put all your eggs in one basket, because when the basket fall, that is all. So that means you need to diversify. So if you are a fish farmer, you can diversify to going into vegetables, which are not even too expensive and they don't even have that stress like that. If you are into animal husbandry, if you are into anything that you are doing, just try and diversify. And that is why we are coming up with this kind of event on this Facebook for our followers, for them to learn about some things they don't know. Even if you know, learn how to do it more and make it something that you can make money from. We are talking about productivity and also profitability too. So we will not waste our time again, because we just have 30 minutes with Mr. Emeka Christian to take us through some things we need to know when it comes to vegetable farming. Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Emeka. I think you should check your mic. Maybe you mute you mute yourself, please. Check your mic. Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good evening. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. It's nice having you around. To be sincere with you, I want to commend your effort, because I just spoke with you just yesterday about this particular session, and you just come on board and say, yes, I want to do this because you love our farmers and you want them to make more profit, and that is why you are coming up with something like this. So I know we have some of our people at the back end watching, and they will be coming up to ask questions as well. But now I want you to take us through some things that we need to know. Let me assume I'm a novice in vegetable farming. I don't know anything about vegetable farming, and I want to make money. Remember, what we are after is, one, we want to contribute to food security, and also we also want to make money to take care of your family as well. So you, as an expert in vegetable farming, now take us through some basic things that even myself, that I don't know anything about vegetable, when I watch this video, I can go back and practice what you said, and I will make money from what you just give me on this show. Please, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. Thank you, Voice of the Farmer, for organizing this wonderful event. Honestly, it is very timely for you to be having this conversation, because we live in a time in Nigeria where one stream of income seems not to be enough. So I know that on this call, we have people who are either, fish farmers, poultry farmers, and the rest of it, even people who farm perennial crops. So it is important that we have this conversation around vegetable farming, because in the course of my presentation, you will understand why you should go into vegetable farming, because the times we are in now, as I said, is not a time to just stick with one crop or maybe one source of income that you have to wait for like 6 months to start making your proceeds. So that's why I'll be talking to us on vegetable farming basically on this call. Please confirm you can see my screen.
Okay, let me bring up your screen.
Good.
Okay, now we can see.
Good. So vegetable farming or vegetable cultivation is simply the act of growing vegetables that we need in our everyday meals. Now, note that word, everyday meals. Having vegetable in our everyday meals means that vegetable are everyday demands in every Nigerian or almost every Nigerian household. Hardly would you see any household that doesn't use vegetable in their meals. So that's why vegetable farming is an area you should look at, because it has high potentials for making returns for you because of its high demand in the market. So I'll quickly prompt us to look through some very issues that would launch us into our conversation this evening. Now, the problem of food insecurity. It is good to note that there is a global hike in the prices of foodstuffs in the market, about 50% increase in the price of foodstuffs within a year. Of course, we can picture this with our Nigerian environment. Also, many companies are downsizing and salaries are being slashed, irrespective of the high unemployment rate. The majority of the people of the employed in even very little income. And some of the farm produce in the market today are not very healthy for production. Then we buy unhealthy foods with our hard-earned money. So this is the burden behind what I'll be sharing with us this evening. Number one, that the price of food stuff in the market are getting very expensive, that's going high by the day. Number two is that income flow is very limited. And number three is that some of the things we buy from the market are not very healthy. So we begin to consider what we call the philosophy behind home garden advocacy, because I will be talking to us, with respect to home gardening, raising a garden, no matter your profession, no matter the aspect of farming you are into, even if you're not into vegetable farming. My hope is that at the end of this call this evening, you should be able to have your home garden. So by experience, we know that every home can drastically cut down the amount of food purchased in the market by setting up a simple home garden. So this is our experience, not just as an extension officer, but as a farmer who has been in the field for a period of 10 years now. So we know this by practice. And this advocacy for home gardening is based on the principle of self-sufficiency economy, that a nation will alleviate poverty if every home produces what they eat and have enough to sell. At least, not everything they eat, but the basic vegetables that they need. If every home is able to do that, then we are sure that we are on the path to food security as a country. Then, can having a home garden eradicate food insecurity overnight in Nigeria? So that's a big question. Now, I've just said every home should be able to do at least some vegetables that they need. The big question then becomes, can this alone solve food insecurity overnight in Nigeria? And the big answer to it is no. One person cannot solve the problem of food insecurity in Nigeria, but through sustained and sustainable home gardening and community farming, we can kick out food insecurity from our nation, Nigeria, starting from our homes. So that's why the work that Voice of the Farmer is doing, and the fact that he had to invite me from Quick 99 to make this presentation is very timely, because it's a call to action to everybody on this call this evening. That after now, you should know that you have a role to play in food security by ensuring that you grow your home garden, your neighbor sees that you're doing something, learns from you, does it. Before you know it, your community will be food secure. Then, why home garden? Why do we talk about home gardening? Why don't we encourage everybody to go into commercial farming instead of home gardening? Truth is, not everybody have the resources to go into commercial farming, and not everybody is a vegetable farming like per se. Some of us, I understand, are either entering farming newly, or some of us are in other aspects of agriculture. So why we are emphatic about home garden is because of the following reasons. Fresh vegetables are good for your health. In fact, you can grow fresh vegetables and you can have them at your backyard, no matter how the space. So in the course of this presentation, you will see more. Now, vegetables are more nutritious when they are eaten fresh from the garden. These are the side perks of owning your vegetable farm. Then you can grow organic crops that are healthy and safe for consumption, as against some of the chemical laden crops and vegetables we buy from the market. Some farmers are so careless in their farm practices, so they even go and use unhealthy amount of chemicals in these vegetables. But when you cultivate them, you are not that risk. So I will be taking us, through the basic process of growing vegetables. And when I speak of vegetable, for the sake of this presentation this evening, I'm talking specifically about cucumber. Why cucumber? The reason is cucumber, unlike other vegetables, other fruit vegetables, matures within a period of 6 weeks. That is a month and 2 weeks. You start your first cucumber harvest. Reason is this: cucumber is made up of 97% water. In other words, if you have your menu, you have water, you are sure to produce your first cucumber at the 6th week after seed sowing. So that's why I want to talk about this, because of both the health benefit of cucumber and the economic benefit of cucumber within a short time, unlike other crops. Now, the first step in cultivating cucumber is you have to choose your garden site carefully. Before you raise an objection that, look, I don't have a garden, just wait. In the course of this presentation, you will also find other alternatives that we also profile. Now, you have to choose a site. You have to consider the following when choosing a site: your soil condition. Your soil should be rich, that fertile with compost. Yeah, it has to be fertile soil. It doesn't have to be a soil that is just, you just look at it, you know that this soil has no fertility at all to sustain the life of plants. Say sand along along beaches, or sand that are quite sandy, as it were. So you have to look out for fertile soil. They must have to be loose. They must not be clayey or clumpy, and they must drain water well. So these are the major criteria in choosing a soil to sow your seeds in. They have to be fertile, they have to be loose, and they have to drain water well. It must not be clumpy, it must not be clay. Then number 2 is sunlight. True, sun is necessary to produce good quality vegetables, with cucumber inclusive. Most of the cucumber you see in the market that are whitish in color is as a result of lack of sunlight. So aside from this, we know from basic science that sunlight helps plants in the manufacture of their food in the presence of sunlight, which we call photosynthesis. So sunlight is very necessary for your planting. You must not plant under a shady tree. Of course, some farmers plant under palm trees because palm trees don't cover, so well. They don't form shades. So they plant under coconut trees. But you must be sure that you have at least 8 hours of sunlight in your farm location. So there should be no trees or shrubs close to your garden, as they compete with garden crops for nutrients, sunlight, and moisture. Then the third major thing you consider when choosing a site is water supply. This is very important. As a matter of fact, as a cucumber farmer, if you have water supply all year round, you are a big person, you are a big man, because cucumber needs water to produce more. Let me share a personal experience with you. One time I did a research in the cucumber farm. I came out in the morning and saw this cucumber fruit. It wasn't quite big. So I left the farm. By the time I left the farm, it rained for say 2 hours. So in the evening, I came back and I went straight to the cucumber I saw in the morning. I saw that it had increased in size. That means that as the rain fell, the fruit sucks water straight to form, to increase in size. That's why when you see any properly produced cucumber, the moment you cut it, you see water dripping out from it. So water is very important, because without water, you run the risk of even the plants dying. You run the risk of the plants becoming bitter and then losing quality. So water, as far as cucumber farming is concerned, is very important. So you can farm cucumber all year round, in season and out of season, provided you have water available, you have water close by. So it is best to have the water supply close by your garden or farm, because these plants need to be watered consistently. For example, for those of us in western regions in Nigeria and the northern region, we discovered that the rain has quite been erratic lately. In other words, the rain does not fall steadily. So it can give maybe 4 days interval. That is affecting the productivity of your cucumber. Because the more cucumber has water, the more fruit it produces, and the more you harvest and take to the market and make your proceeds. So water supply is very fundamental in vegetable farming. Then number two, plan the layout of your garden. Now, this is assuming you have other crops you want to integrate with your cucumber plant, say corn. So you know that when your corn is older or grows taller, it kind of shields the tender cucumber plant from the sun. So this is where the farm planning comes into play. How you're going to separate different types of crops, maybe crops that have the same type of pest, crops that have the same type of diseases, crops that are, that just have their different appearances. So you have to plan that here. So he said, after choosing your garden site, the next thing is to plan the arrangement of crops in your garden, as I just explained. Now, consider the size of your garden and determine the vegetables and crops you want to have in it. So you have to choose vegetables that you and your family can enjoy. And I'm saying this because I assume that not many of us have all the space, or not many of us here would want to start on a large scale first. Besides, we at Coach 99 Agriculture and Seeds Company Limited, we have a philosophy that says, in fact, we encourage people, is one of our core values, that people should start small and grow big. Assuming you are a new entrant into vegetable farming, it's advised that even if you have all the money to start a mega farm right now, so provided you are starting by yourself, you're starting all alone, please start small and grow big. So you have to choose a sizable portion of your farm that you want to plant what you need, and then start from there and perhaps expand as time goes on. Then you have to plan to grow your vegetables successively, as to have consistent supply of vegetables all year round. Because there's something about cucumber farming. The cucumber farm business, cucumber cultivation business has a very large market, without doubt. Because the moment you produce now and people come and see that you have cucumber, friends, they will always come back to you for cucumber fruit every now and then. So it is advisable for you, even if you're doing a very small scale, you have to plan it maybe in batches. Say you have maybe 30 beds or 40, 40 buckets or 40 sacks. You can say, okay, I can do it in 10. That is, and do 4 batches, such that in a long period of time, you're going to be having cucumber producing. As this one is maturing and going away, this other one is falling into place. You're harvesting and making money. So that way you sustain your buyers. Because I must confess to you, somebody told me that, Mr. Olumide, our co-client, the man you got for us to help with cucumber farm. So the man said he retails his cucumber fruits, right? He retails his cucumber fruits, and that makes a lot of sense. If you know how much they sell each fruit at this time, you'll be amazed. So for somebody who wants to sustain that flow of income, you have to ensure that you plant in batches to have all year round. Then plan to rotate crops from one part of the garden to another to prevent diseases. This is very important. Assuming you have a very small space, one thing you might do is if you are removing from a batch, you might need to let that batch rest. Say a batch has finished producing and you're going to another batch. You might not need to replant immediately. You might just allow some time, such that if there's any pests, that were harbored in that other farm, they will not, keep on regrowing and reproducing in that environment. So it's advisable that if you have spaces in your place, you can move from this space to that other space, because pests migrate. They can migrate and hide around. Pests and diseases, they can migrate and stick around in the environment. So it's good that if you have what it takes, please rotate your planting location. Then number 3 in the steps of vegetable cultivation is grow quality varieties. Your seed source is very important. So always select good seed varieties to ensure the vegetables have good quality and are high yielders. So we have covered in this regard. So there are many other seeds out there in the market, but You can also check, some of these tested and trusted from Kuchinet and I Agriculture and Seeds Company Limited. So why this is important is this. Sometimes people go and source seeds from maybe F3, F4 generations, which means a hybrid seed would have been planted for 4 times. Now, in that whole period, it would have lost some of its features, some of its interesting features. In that period, even the fruit from which you extracted the seed you want to replant might have had some diseases. So by the time you plant these F4 seeds, that is the 4th generation of a hybrid seed, you might put so much effort and get out so little result in terms of yield. So that's why we encourage people that hybrid seeds are very, high yielding. They yield so much. So in everything you're doing, ensure to go with hybrid seeds. Go for hybrid seeds. Get hybrid seeds and then plant it because it gives you rewards for your effort. So always have quality seed in mind, each time you're setting up your garden or farm. Now, the number 4 step is prepare and care for the soil properly. Now, in doing this entails clearing the farm, or clearing the garden, stumping it. In case of maybe wood stumps in the soil, just pull them out, assuming you're planting on the ground, right? Because some of these stumps can prevent the plant from growing very well. You want to say something?
No, I'm with you. I'm enjoying your presentation. Well done.
Yeah, so this is just an outline. So you stump the garden, you plan your garden layout, you apply the manure. Now, this manure application is very important, even if you're planting in sacks or in buckets. So you have to ensure you have manure, preferably poultry manure. So this is for poultry farmers in the house. It is good that you are selling your poultry manure and making so much money, but then this is another thing you can do with your poultry manure, reserve some and use them to mix with the soil and plant cucumber as a side income. So it will make a lot of sense if you could do that. Then, if you're also planting in buckets or in sacks, you can also get the manure and the soil, mix them together. Don't ever do not mix. Do not put just sand or just your substrate or whatever you're planting with, because you can plant with sand. Imagine you're planting in sacks or buckets. You can plant with you can plant with cocoa peat, you can plant with potting soil. So in each of these things, you really need to put organic matter and organic manure inside. You can your kitchen waste like fruit and all of those vegetables, you can mix them with the manure and the soil and put together. This adds to the soil fertility. Then if you're planting on bed, then you need to make your bed. For some person, they apply manure before making bed. For some other person, they apply after making bed. That is in the particular spot where they want to plant their seed, they apply the manure there. So whichever works for you, please go for it. Then after planting, you talk about mulching. Mulching, we believe, has several benefits, which ranges from conserving the water in the soil to, to helping the seeds, the plants not to compete with seeds around. Yeah, not to compete with weeds, So you can mulch with either waterproof, which kind of suppresses weeds from coming up and also prevents water loss. You can also mulch with local materials around, like sawdust, like dry leaves and all. So these things help in water conservation and they help in weed suppression. Then you talk about irrigation. Now, for the sake of home gardening, manual irrigation is the way to go because your farm is not too big. But if you feel you still want to apply some modern technologies like irrigation system, drip irrigation in your home garden, you can also go for it. There's also room for that. So if you can see my slides here, I want you to just take a look at the soil types here. We have the sandy soil, we have the loam soil, we have the clay soil. So this loam soil is the most ideal in planting. In fact, most persons go as far as mixing sandy and loamy soil, and that helps a lot. Yeah, because sandy soil does not hold much water. The loam soil holds just enough water for the plant to utilize. So you can mix sandy and loam soil together, so it doesn't hurt, only in very appropriate proportions. Then the 5th step is sowing. Basically, there are 2 methods of seed sowing, and this is direct sowing. That is sowing straight into the already made bed in the farm. Now, in direct sowing, you sow one or two seeds per hole. Reason is this: in case one does not germinate, the other will germinate. But on a general note, we don't advise people to leave two plants in one hole. What happens is that these hybrid seeds are very viable. They grow very well. By the time those two seeds grow together, they might overcrowd the entire farm. So you now have to battle with plant diseases, because when cucumber plants particularly, are overcrowded, they have tendency of forming a humid environment where fungal diseases and other forms of diseases can thrive, and you wouldn't want that. So it is best you plant one seed per hole, or if you planted two, in case any other seed did not germinate or any hole did not germinate at all, you can take one from there and transplant into the empty hole. And plant population is very important. If you're planting cucumber, plant population is very important, because the more your plant, the more your fruit. So you have to note that, ensure that nothing is left empty. And you also have to plant with your finger. Do not bury the seeds. Put the seed just 3/4 of an inch. That is your index finger. Just point the finger you use are pointing at somebody. Just use it and dip a small hole and then put in the seed. Do not bury the seeds too deep, because the seeds are too viable and they may not, when you bury them too deeply, they may not come up, just as you have with other seeds. So they may not come up if you bury them quite deep. Then there's also another aspect of direct sowing. You mostly sow, large sized seeds. Some of the seeds you plant directly are mostly big sized seeds, say cucumber seed. For tomato seed and the rest, you need to nurse, like pepper seed and all. You need to nurse them first. But for cucumber and watermelon, you can plant them direct, or you can also make nursery as a backup in case some of them did not germinate. You can take from your nursery and replant those ones that didn't germinate. Now, there's also the second type of sowing, which is sowing in nurseries. You can see on my slide here some plants, but these are tomato plants in nursery trees. You can sow them in nursery trees, and there's so much advantage of sowing in nursery trees, planting in nursery trees. The root conditions of the plant are maintained. The roots are not damaged in the course of the nursery maintenance, watering, and even transplanting. Because when you are pulling out the seedlings from the nursery holes, the roots and the sand assume the shape of that hole. So that way, the roots and the root of the plant remain intact, such that they remain unhurt. When you transplant them, they thrive all along. Then for cucumber, when you nurse your cucumber, ensure it stays between 6 to 10 days before transplanting. 6 to 10 days before transplanting, because if you transplant earlier before now, you might have higher mortality rates. Then for tomatoes, you can have them in the nursery from between 25 to 30 days before you transplant into the open field. Now, there's another factor, which is bed making. We recommend that people make raised beds in case of flooding, or in case of, in case of maybe human beings walking and killing your plants. So it is best advised that you have a raised bed for your plants. For some persons, they can do one row bed where they only plant one row. From the picture, you can see this is 2-row bed. Cucumber were planted on both sides of the bed, and you can see that the bed is actually a bed. It's wider. It's not a ridge. But there are farmers who have very vast land, so they don't have the time to be making beds. They will just make ridge. That is 1-row bed, and plant the cucumber on 1 row. So ideally, your beds should be, in case you are doing 2-row planting, your bed should be 1 meter wide. That is 100 cm, 1 meter wide. And the spacing between the beds should be about 1 meter. That is ideally. That is the space between one bed and the other bed, which is the furrow. Okay. Assuming you're in a farm, you can apply all of these things. But in planting in sacks and buckets, there's also other things to consider, which we would also see here. So why do we even advise people to use raised beds? Raised beds helps to loosen the compacted soil, because as you are trying to make the bed, turning the soil, trying to form a bed, you are breaking up, lumps of the soil, which will now help the seed of the plant to penetrate, and which will also help the easy absorption of plant nutrients into the soil. So making beds helps your water to drain well and not log. Yeah, because I just made mention of that. There are some persons who just go and plant on the bare ground. When the rain comes, it floods everywhere. But when you have a raised bed, no matter how much the rain falls, it kind of comes up. After some time, it reduces. But when you don't make beds, the water will stay with your plants there and they will dry with your plants. And before they dry, you discover that your plant is already having issues with diseases. And raised beds help the roots to penetrate better without stress. Yeah, because you remember you already have a soft soil that they can penetrate into, unlike the ground where where they now struggle to, find their way into the soil. Then this is a picture of an ideal cucumber farm. So this is a picture of what it looks like. So you have all of those things there used for sticking it, making them to climb and to grow well. You have the mulching film. You see, this white mulching film helps in repelling pests, because the reflection of sunlight from the mulching film, that thing they use to cover it to prevent weed and water loss. So it also helps in preventing pests from coming, because as the pests are coming, the light rays reflect and they move away from your farm. Then you can also use sack bags or other containers if there's no space in your home. So you can see from the pictures, you can see this farmer used sacks, and not just that, this farmer used drip tapes on the sacks. So you can see from the picture, this is a home garden out here. The farmer planted in sacks, and I just mentioned the contents of this sack. You have manure, you have soil, and is given appropriate treatment. So this is something you can do in your backyard, no matter who you are, no matter your job, a lawyer, a farmer, or whoever. You can cultivate what you eat. It is possible. Now you can also use tires and buckets. So yeah, you can even plant cucumber here in your tire in a bucket. So this is bawa that was planted in a bucket. We planted this, and I took the picture, and here we are today. So these things are doable. Now there are other things you do when after you have planted your seeds and they started growing. There are basic things you should do, which include side dressing at least every 2 weeks. Side dressing simply means, in case you're not using drip irrigation, if you're using drip irrigation system, where you have the drip irrigation option that delivers manure straight to the root regions of the plant, you can side dress manually. What that means is that you get organic manure or your kitchen waste and mix together in water, and then with the water, you then scoop and then apply to the root regions of your plant to augment the manure you put in. Because as they grow, these plants are like human beings. As they grow, their nutritional needs and their food demand, their demand for food grows. Their demand for food grows because they are now growing. So you have to augment whatever you put in the soil at the point of land preparation. Now you have to weed not just every 2 to 4 weeks, depending on the season. Weeding should be a constant practice in your farm, because some of these pests are harbored in weeds. We even advise people that during their land preparations, they should ensure that there's no bush nearby. Every bush nearby should have to be at least 5 meters away from your farm, because these pests will hide in those bushes, and at night when nobody's watching, they'll come and attack your farm. So even in your own farm, you shouldn't have weed at all, because weed harbors pests. And some of these pests are disease vectors that will introduce diseases into your farm. So it is important you take weeding seriously. And besides, one of the advantages of a home garden is that, aside from the health benefit and making you a revenue, it also beautifies your environment. So you can't have an environment that you want to give aesthetic looks to, and you're leaving it bushy. So it's very important that you weed. Then the third way is staking. You stake 2 to 3 weeks after transplanting or planting cucumber. It's very important.
Mr. Emeka, hello. Sorry, yes, please, I want to cut you short there, because I have someone at the back end that want to ask a question. I know where we are stopping is taking. So Mr. Saka Abibullah want to ask a question, and immediately he asks his question, we are going to bring him down, then you continue. Hello.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah,
Yes, please
please.
ask your question.
Okay. Good evening, sir.
Thank you.
Evening.
Thanks for the host. Thanks for our, let me say, our lecturer today. I really appreciate. Sir, please, I have 3 questions.
Okay.
And let me say, my question will be based on the seed for vegetables. Let me say, my question will be based on the seed.
Okay.
Firstly, I want to ask that how can I optimize it?
Hello, we can hear you.
Go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Are you with me?
Yes,
Yes, we can
I'm
hear
with
you.
you. Go ahead, please. Yeah, we lost him.
I
The
think the
network is
network is not too good. I think so.
from
You
his
can
end.
continue, Mister. You can continue.
No problems. So I was going to say that you get the best from cucumber farming when you stake your your cucumbers. I've seen many farmers who farm cucumber and they let cucumber crawl on the ground like a pumpkin, fluted pumpkin. Some of them during harvesting period they find it very difficult because when they are trying to walk through their farm, they are stepping on cucumber fruits. They are stepping on the cucumber fruit. So they they kind of escape the stress of staking cucumber or the cost that goes with getting stakes and getting ropes or maybe improvising to have the cucumbers climb a tree or stake. So they escape that, but they cannot escape the losses that goes with it, which is more than the profits they got from not staking their cucumber plants. So another reason why people should also stake is this: when your cucumbers are on the ground, when your cucumbers are on the ground, pests can hide under your leaves. They can hide under the leaves and you cannot see them. And when they're on the ground, there are some basic practices that help the yield of cucumber that you cannot carry out because they are on the ground. So that's why when you go to the market, you see some fruits, they are whitish, some part is green, the other part is whitish. You're asking why. The part that is whitish in color is the part that is lying down. It's just like a snake. When you see a snake, it can be black in color, but by the time you turn the stomach is white. So because that side, sunlight is not touching it. So staking has more benefit than we can ever imagine. Then you talk about pruning. Pruning is the cutting off of excess branches or leaves from the lower region of a cucumber plant. From the first 4 branches from the lower region, from the bottom of your cucumber plant, you count the region that came out from the soil, just 1, 2, 3, 4 branches and leaves. Cut them off. The reason for this is this: the if you leave it that way, it will start forming branches, and those branches will now scatter so much. They'll be having small fruits. They'll have so many fruits, but they will not be sizable fruits. So it's better you cut off those excess branches and retain the main vine, so that the main vine then develops branch at the upward part of the plant. That way, you have enough fruit and you have sizable fruits too. Now, that pruning also helps to prevent diseases because some of the fungal diseases come through the leaves. When the leaves are very close to the soil and rain is falling and splashing dirt on the leaves, the leaves can contact diseases, say like Fusarium wilt, all of those diseases that are all around. You have that problem. So when you prune both the branches and the lower leaves, you mitigate some of those issues. Then the other practice that helps your cucumber farm to come out well is regular watering. I cannot overemphasize this. I've mentioned it before that you have to water it because cucumber is 97% water. Therefore, it needs 97% water. Because without water, you will not have good produce, you will not have good harvest, or you can even have harvest, but the harvest will not be up to market quality. Then for other crops and all, so you harvest cucumber for 6 weeks. You harvest cucumber at 6 weeks. At the 6th week, assuming you followed all the processes I outlined here, at the 6th week, you should be able to do your first cucumber harvest and take to the market. Now, generally, I want to talk on something called biosecurity. So, biosecurity are the measures you take to prevent the emergence of disease in your plants. Say, farm sanitation is very important. Use of disinfectant to disinfect your farm tools is very important because these are some of the ways that disease spreads in your farm. Some persons don't wash their farm implements, they don't wash their scissors they use in pruning, they don't even wash the things they use in cutting plants or doing anything that has to do with plants. These vegetables are delicate, so they need the utmost delicate care. So you have to ensure that you use at least hydrogen peroxide to treat some of these things. You also apply pesticide when necessary. When you see, you do what you call scouting. You just keep your eyes on your farm. I tell people that vegetable farming is like, taking care of a baby. You are a nanny. You don't need to go too far from your farm. Some persons go to the bush and plant, they can plant it in their backyard even and then abandon it. I said no. A vegetable farmer visits the farm every day to save his plants, so to say. So upon that regular visit, you'll be able to point out when there's something wrong. Maybe you see 1, 2, 3, 4 pests around. You know that the pests are around the corner, because if you leave them to linger there in the next 48 hours, you'll not have a farm again. So that's why taking it close is very important. This is the way you mitigate the emergence of diseases and emergence of pests in your farm. So the other one is, use of appropriate chemicals or pesticides. This is very important because we are in a time when people care so much about profit that they don't care about the well-being of people who consume their produce. Some people use insecticide. Now, note, there's a difference between insecticide and pesticide. Insecticides are highly concentrated chemicals that are supposed to kill. So insecticides are produced to kill, but pesticides are meant for plants, so that are to be consumed, by humans. So some considerations were put in place. Yes. So some considerations were put in place as to the content and the mode of application. So that's why you see hardly will you see any pesticide that you don't dilute in water. You dilute them in water, and the chemical components from the factory were measured with human consumers in mind. So, but irrespective of that, there's something called re-entry period after you have applied your agrochemicals. This is both for your health and both for your consumers. So you don't just pluck your cucumber until, say, 24 to 48 hours after spraying your pesticide. So you have to observe that so that you don't give people poison, or you don't even give yourself poison. But for a home gardener, we suggest that if it is a small garden, you can go ahead and use organic methods to ward off pests. For example, using dogoyaro. Dogoyaro is very bitter, so it is good, when you splash it when you extract the juice and splash on the leaves of the plant, they turn unpalatable. They become unsweet, like they become bitter for the pests to eat. So when they come, they run away. But the most important thing is that keep an eye on your vegetable farm. Ensure you observe biosecurity by ensuring that something that brings diseases are not there in your farm. So you talk about pruning. So I've just talked about that at the upper level. The act of removing unwanted plant parts, shoots and branches, in order to encourage high productivity. Pruning encourages high yield. It helps check the spread of diseases. It helps the farm to be neat and create space for the farmer to quickly walk through. Yeah. So your farm will not be like a bush. Your farm will not be bushy. To just be organized and clean. Then it minimizes unnecessary competition for nutrients. I've said all of those. It encourages proper fruit setting, your fruit size. So this is what staking looks like. This is the act of providing support to plants using sticks or anything you can get your hands on to help the plants, climb. Staking helps make the environment clean and accessible and beautiful. It promotes fruit health, as fruits are kept off the ground. You see, for some of us, we can go to our cucumber farm and see our cucumber fruit hanging. You can just pluck it and use something and clean it and eat it off. Of course, that's not healthy. But then the plants are clean. Even when you take them to the market, or you're even retailing, it becomes easier to sell because the body are not, the flesh of your cucumber fruit are not rough. They are smooth and palatable. So that's the work of staking. Staking also increases productivity, hence promotes profit for commercial farmers. So I wouldn't be going to the diseases of cucumber fruits and all. So there are several diseases and all. So that will be, I believe that Mr. Olumide can get me on the call some other time. So we discuss that. So
Mr. Emeka, to be sincere with you, I don't even know how to appreciate you, because you have given us a lot of insight about cucumber. This is a very good one. But before I commend you, please, I have some questions here which someone sent to me privately. He said the first question is this: what factors affect the seed germination rate, and how can I optimize it? Did you get the question? What
Yes.
factors affect the seed germination rate, and how can I optimize it?
Yeah. So some of these hybrid seeds are dormant because sometimes they are produced in the factory and they have to travel a long distance to get to the country where they are needed. So one of the things they do is that they preserve it in a way that it does not germinate on transit. So you say that the seeds are dormant. Now, some seeds like cucumber are not always hyper dormant. So when we talk about seed dormancy, you're talking about pepper seed, you're talking about tomato seed that are so dry that you have to sometimes even do, you have to do what's the word now? Tissue culturing. Like you have to do, wet cloth germination to break the dormancy. So that's a major factor. Seed dormancy. Seed dormancy affects germination. So for a farmer who is experienced, you have to know that when you plant a seed, you have to water immediately after planting. That's very important. That's one thing many farmers don't do. I went to see a farmer somewhere in Western Nigeria one time. He was complaining that his seed did not germinate. So I asked him, what did you do? He said that after planting, he didn't even water it, but he used a kind of humid soil and planted and covered so that it will heat up. Then after some day, he will remove the cover and they will sprout. I said, well, that's a good practice. But sometimes some seeds are more dormant than others. It can work for a seed that is not very dormant, right? But for a seed that is dormant, you really would have to water immediately after planting to activate it, like to provide an environment where it germinates. Then the next thing is that you have to, there's something about seed handling because I deal with farmers a lot. So, and sometimes I get to introduce them to seeds to use. You see a farmer who would buy a seed and you keep it in a place that is not good for that seed. That is not a very good way of storing the seed. Maybe where it's exposed to heat or to sunlight. After some time, when you bring out that seed to plant it, it may not germinate again. So there's also the other aspect of, say, very hard seeds like tomatoes and pepper. I advise people, please do not just plant in your nursery. If you're not using a nursery tray, I advise people, say, look, if you're not using a nursery tray to germinate your pepper seeds, say, for example, what you do is that you do cloth germination. You get a fine cloth or handkerchief or tissue paper, pour the seeds inside, and then put in a container. Then sprinkle little water. Every day you just keep sprinkling little water just to keep it in a cool, dry place and be sprinkling water. After some days, you see that the seeds will start breaking. Then you can now go and spread either in your ground nursery or in wherever you want to nurse it. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Emeka, for that. You already opened my mind to some things that I don't even understand before, but now I understand very well. Now, this brings me back to the second question. You have also mentioned about it too. You've mentioned it. The person was talking about how can we store our seed to maintain its viability and its shelf life. Talking about the storage, you have already spoken about it too, but I want you to just answer the person's question. How do we need to, as a farmer, how can we store our seed to maintain its viability and also the shelf life?
Yes. So the first way you do that is by ensuring that you keep it off sunlight. That's the first action you need to take. Keep in a cool, dry place. For example, you may not need to put it in a nylon bag or container. Or a metal container. You can put in a paper bag and store in a place where rats will not have access to it. But do not store in a place that is damp, like a place that is almost wet. Just in your normal room, just the way you stay in your room and you're comfortable, just keep it in that room that you can be comfortable staying in without so much heat and without so much coldness. So that's the answer to that.
Now, the last question from the person is this. He said, how do I select the right variety of seed for my specific climate and growing condition?
Okay, yeah, I do not know the climate you are in. As a matter of fact, I don't know where the person is joining from. But one thing I can say is this: always go for resilient varieties. Like if you can see the screen, the cucumber variety you have there is called African Giant. So it is one of the very resilient varieties you can ever have around. Of course, there are several other varieties out there. So always go for a resilient variety, because this variety will stand heat, it will stand rain. It's that's very, very tough. So you have to always check for reviews, ask for reviews whenever you want to make. So that's why what Voice of the Farmer is doing in terms of having a community for farmers is very important, because farming, as we establish.
I think his network is not so good.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, confirm you can hear. So
yes, I can hear you.
You must have a community where you can go to get reviews, and also ensure to get your seed from dealers, not from any person around the street, because the person along the street can maybe sell anything to you adulterated, or maybe something that has overstayed in his or her store, and that's, you cannot vouch for the viability.
Thank you very much, Mr. Yes, yeah, thank you very much for that insight. I am very, very grateful for that. Now, I want to show people something, because I'm not just bringing Mr. Emeka on board, because I know he knows a lot about cucumber and some other vegetables. Now, this cucumber you are seeing, one of the things I do when I advocate, I don't just work with people. When I advocate for people that, yes, do this, definitely I have proof for it. Yes, I did a training for some people on tomato sometimes ago, and I told them that, yes, while you are waiting for planting tomato, because tomato is not easy to plant, now you can start growing cucumber so that you make your money very quick. Now, I recommended Kush 99 seed to them. And to be sincere with you, this is the smallest out of the cucumber harvest. I can tell you, this is the smallest out of the cucumber harvest. I purchased this because, when I need to also encourage the farmer. I bought this myself from the person that he said, Mr. Olumide, thank you very much for telling me that I can make money from cucumber. The person is making money from cucumber now. And I said, this is the least. Now, in the market now, you cannot get this on 200. At least you'll be getting like going to 400, 500 in the market. Look at how big this is. So you should know that the person that is talking to us is an expert in what he's talking about. So I want to say a very big thank you to Mr. Emeka for this opportunity. And I'm very sure anytime we call on you again, you will definitely be willing and glad to come to talk to us about this. Now, to wrap it up now, in case you need any seed from Kush 99, just call my number. I will drop my number at the comment section or anywhere. Some of us already have my numbers again. I will definitely give you direct access to Kush 99, because I can vouch for them that they are selling the good varieties. Now, we are going to be wrapping up the show now, but to be sincere with you, we wanted to spend just 30 minutes, but we spent even more than 50 minutes. That means we are enjoying the presentation, and I'm very sure very soon, maybe in the next 1 or 2 weeks, we'll be bringing Mr. Emeka back. It is not just cucumber alone they do. Now, they are also telling us one of the things they're doing in their company is also extension services as well. In case you need someone to come and assist you on your farm, come and check your farm, what is happening on your farm, they also render that services as well. So don't worry, we are going to do a lot in this community. We are not asking anybody to pay us for this. We are just trying to contribute to food security in our own little way. Till I come your way next time, my name is Garuba Hafiz Olumide. Anything that deals with agriculture, that is where you are going to find me. I will always be your host, because I am your host today, and I will always be your host when it comes to Voice of the Farmer on any platform. Till I come your way next time, I say bye-bye and God bless.
Thank you.